counter is going. So I am live. Happy to have Matt Ginella. Matt, thanks for coming on. It's interesting that technology allows us to do this. I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. We're kind of dodging a hurricane, and you're probably enjoying the weather, but welcome to Golf 360 podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and always love talking golf. Obviously, we were just watching the news and saw a hurricane. Living in Florida for 8 years, I do not miss hurricane season.
No, it's not fun.
No, I hope everything's going to go okay and everybody gets out all right.
You know, as I was doing my homework on you, one thing I gotta just needle you a little bit on, because you're obviously from Southern California. I live now just off of Hilton Head, South Carolina, but I grew up in Detroit. And I saw I watched a video some time ago when you guys launched your studio, and you had the Tony Gwynn framed jersey up on your wall. But I'd have to imagine the '84 year was a little heartbreaking for you, as much as it was elation for me as a kid that was in, what was I, in 7th grade when they won the series. That was pretty fun for us, but probably heartbreak for you.
It was heartbreak, but it was it was still early in my fandom. I was 12, 13 when that all went down. And, at that point, it was like, you didn't really realize that maybe they wouldn't get back you know what I mean? Like, you don't even know what you don't know at that point. So, it definitely stung. The '98 World Series for the Padres really crushed me. I mean, you think about the Padres, and they got a good team this year, and this has been a fun run, but they've bumped into the '84 Tigers and the '98 Yankees, which would, I don't know where those two teams sit in the sort of the overall rankings of powerhouses, but they've got to be two of like the top 5 teams. So Padres have, any team that gets the World Series has got a lot going right for them. And there's only one winner, and everybody else in theory is the loser, but those were buzzsaws, both of those. So,
yeah, they were like if there was a destiny team at those times, those teams were both destined to do what they did, win the World Series.
I'm really hoping the Padres are destined this year, because
could be your year.
Could be. We're in the dance, and once you're in the baseball dance, anything can happen.
That's right. Now you have a very, very impressive resume, and I'll just read it here for everybody. Your bio: you are the CEO and executive producer of the Fire Pit Productions. You're also the founder. You are host of Ginellas Journeys, Bonfires, In the Dirt, and the Fire Pit podcasts. You worked 7 years. You had arguably the best job in the world when you worked 7 years at the Golf Channel as a travel insider and senior travel editor and director of photography for Golf Digest. Sports Illustrated coming out of school, if I'm correct. You have a degree in communications and a master's in journalism from Columbia. And from what I am told from some mutual friends, you're even indirectly a TV star on The Real Wives of Orange County. That you've made some cameo appearances. So quite the resume. But I get, they always say that there's, we're told when we're in school, there's no stupid questions, just ask away. But this one might challenge that narrative. So as a travel insider, playing golf courses, going around the world, did you have the best job in the world?
Without a doubt. And I was reminded of that, pretty much on a daily basis by any number of, people, whether that be social media or face to face. And I agree. I agreed. And I didn't take it for granted. I took that job, seriously, in the sense that I felt like, and continue to feel like, people are asking me constantly. And again, all forms of ways of people communicate with each other nowadays, which there's so many options. But when people ask me, should I go here or there, or I'm going here, what should I do? Or I take that very seriously because I know people are making choices to spend, X number of days and X number of dollars with their friends and or family or both. And they're really trying to hone in on what what is the best fit for them, their group, their budget, their priorities. And I always, it wasn't just a blanket answer. It was, yeah, I love Bandon Dunes, but it isn't the best venue for everybody, right? I love Pinehurst. It's not the best venue for everybody. St. Andrews isn't the best venue for everybody. I love all those places, but you gotta kind of figure out with people, what exactly their priorities are, their expectations are, what their budget is, how big is the group, are they going to be moving or staying? All those things are little, the nuanced and the subtleties to trying to help people navigate the amount of options and opportunities we have out there to stay and play, travel and experience the game of golf in this country and others. And so, yeah, it was a great job. It was 170 plus years a day on the road and it goes back to beyond 7 years at Golf Channel, but it was another 7 years at Golf Digest and beyond. And now with the production company, I've continued to travel. With a family, it's gotten way more difficult. As a single guy, and some of these people that are out there doing it now, I see them. I mean, it's not as easy as people thought it was. Like just, nonstop, travel, airplanes, trains, automobiles, missed flights, staying in random hotels, being out there on the road. But as a single guy, it was incredible. It was fun. I would never have traded it for the world. Once I got married and started a family, and they traveled with me for the first 2 years pretty hard. I mean, they were with me because we could do it. But after that, it stopped. That number of days on the road stopped making sense. So,
yeah, I could only imagine it. I always think back to when I hear people talk about that and traveling, and I remember playing mini tours and chasing Mondays and all that, and going sleeping in your car, going hotel to hotel, and waking up and not knowing what hotel you're in. But I always think back to Gary Player and his career, basically being based out of South Africa back in the 60s and 70s, and taking his family all over the world. I can't even imagine how the difficulty that he went through, and then to play at the level he did, whether you're a Gary Player fan or not. I mean, for him to accomplish what he did, from where he had to go from and what he did to get there, is just another layer of something that he had to get past that other people maybe didn't to the extent.
I mean, Gary Player for sure is at the top of that mountain. But even some of the original pros. I mean, look at what these guys were doing: the Hogans and the Nelsons and the guys before them. I mean, to try to get from tour spot to tour spot, and for not a lot of money. I mean, the hustle, involved. Travel, especially now, is just not easy. It's just not easy on the body. It's not easy on the psyche. It can beat you down. So, but there are a lot of benefits. The perks of seeing the world on a company dime, and being able to meet the amount of people I've met and had the experiences I've had, and the memories, and to play the golf. To play the golf courses is one thing, but to me, the stuff that's really has stuck out with me is the relationships and the cultural immersions, the listening to, the various aspects of music, or eating the food or drinking the drinks, or
the different cultures.
Yeah, no, I mean, that to me, there is no greater form of education than travel. Because it gets you up and out of your comfort zone. It gets you up and out of your bubble, and it gets you, experiencing the world through a lot of different perspectives and experiences. So
I think I listened to you on, I think it was Mark Crossfield's podcast a couple years ago. I think it was theirs, or it might have been Patty Talks Golf, because he's been on the show. But nonetheless, you had mentioned that really got my interest, that I'm trying to plan it or put it together, a trip you went on to Ireland where you went into some castle. I don't remember if it was part of it. It was at the ninth hole, or you go into after. There was a section or a tunnel that you went into, or that's where you go to have some drinks after your round. And then there's like a coffee shop that looks over a cliff in the ocean, like 2 miles down the street from the from the golf course. Do you remember that by chance? Might be hard with the catalog of golf trips you have in your head.
I'm not remembering a tunnel. I've been
Might
in.
have just been a castle that you guys went into after the round to have some, but it was really cool. And you were basically saying that the Ireland trip, that everybody who's a golfer should probably do that at least once or try to do it because it was so much fun.
Could have been Ardglass. I mean, Ardglass's
Yes,
clubhouse is a castle, and it's
yes,
the
that was
oldest
it.
club. Clubhouse goes back to the 1400s, um, and you do overlook the first tee in the clubhouse as you get up there, and it's a great first tee. It's a great first hole. I think it no longer is flying below the radar. It's not. It's about 25, 30 minutes from Royal County Down in Northern Ireland. Paul Vaughan is the pro. He's like one of the sweetest, kindest, most gracious, humble guys on earth, and he gives everybody a real warm welcome. Ardglass is, they are always constantly improving that golf course and that experience. It's still a sliver of the cost of some of the other high end premium products in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And I've told everybody ever since I went, I was like, I can't believe how good this place is. So Ardglass is definitely on that list. And, St. Patrick's Grave is not far from Ardglass. So if you're going to Ardglass, you get to the patron saint of Ireland, the one we celebrate every March. St. Patrick's Grave is there, which is, you can't believe it. It's just a big boulder. It's just a big rock, which is not far from Ardglass. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
A lot of cool stuff. If somebody out there is listening was planning a memorable trip, whether it's with their family or with their friends they grew up with or whoever, it's going to be something very special. Would you be able to categorize it into, let's say, your top 3 places that someone should consider without offending so many of the others, the great ones that you've been to?
Well, again, just there, those are 2 very different trips, right? If you're going with friends versus you're going with, I think you said family, that's two separate, that all automatically then makes me think about those things in 2 very different ways. So you know what I mean? That goes back to where we started, which is I've always tried to ask for more specifics: group size, priorities, budget. Have you already been here? Where have you not been? You know what I mean? Like all of that factors into it. So it's not just, I can answer for me, for my buddy's trip that I'm just planning right now, which is we're on, year 14. And that's the Uncle Tony Invitational. We go to Bandon Dunes. Now, we go to Bandon Dunes. That you got 5 big courses now, multiple short courses, the putting course, the 2 par 3 courses, and the logistics are just amazing. It's not easy to get to per se, but once you're there, you park there is no need for a car. You got shuttles. It's for a group of 24 or 28, and it varies some years. Bandon Dunes is the trip for me and us. Now we've also gone to Pinehurst. We've also gone to Sand Valley. Great destinations, obviously, premier offerings. But we are mostly a West Coast group. People are coming in from Ireland and people are coming in from the East Coast, but the majority of the 24 this year are West Coasters. Mm-hmm. So Bandon is it for me. Pinehurst is getting better now with the addition of their 10th course with the Tom Doak design, and I think with some potential, cottages and things like that where people can congregate. I think Stream Song is going to add some cottages. That's a good buddies trip destination. I know they're going to add a 4th course as well. So you got that, then they got a short course. Kohler obviously is cool, but I don't love the fact that they don't have a great variety of golf courses with Pete Dye, 4 Pete Dye courses. Big Cedar Lodge is one that I've stumbled upon, and they've only added, improved. Obviously Myrtle Beach is great for people who are a little more budget conscious. I mean, the list goes like on and on, right? I mean, what's happened here is crazy. If I'm going with more of a family or a smaller couples trip, or, then I am looking to places like Sea Island or Pebble Beach or Ireland, is great. Ireland is kind of a place that almost works for anything. You can go with buddies, you can go with your couples, you can go with family. Ireland is checks so many boxes. I don't think that's necessarily the case with Scotland. Hardcore guys who big game hunters who have done a lot of all the stuff that we're talking about right now. Melbourne, Australia, to me, over to Tasmania for Barnbougle, like that's the trip that I didn't realize how great it was until I actually went. That's for the ones who really want to, get after it.
Yeah, I can
Melbourne, I
imagine.
think, is
You're
another.
going to get in an airplane for 20 plus hours. You're really wanting to do something like that. It's going
Yeah,
to weed out a lot of people.
it is. But I will tell you, in Melbourne is like Bandon on steroids,
Wow.
and from a logistics standpoint, and then popping over to Tasmania and doing Barnbougle, that is kind of the side trip to even, that would be the cherry on top of what would be an incredible Sunday.
When you were going to all these courses, and obviously you're going to some of the biggest most popular courses in the world, was there any time that you were able to siphon off, that you maybe talked to some locals and they said, hey, you got to go check out this course down the road and go here and go there, and then it's like this unheard of little gem? Did you ever come across things like that?
Oh, totally. I mean, going back to early days of Golf Digest, I mean, that, you know, uncovering Forest Dunes in Michigan, right, in its original state, that was middle of nowhere. No one was going to Forest Dunes at that time. That original Tom Weiss golf course was literally in the middle of nowhere. So, Forest Dunes, I think of, I think, Critch Island is one that comes to mind up in Ireland, in between Nairn and Portneuf and St. Patrick's now. That kind of discovery. I think of Portumna now in Ireland, which is kind of halfway between Dublin and where you would go to the southwest, where people say, you got to go play here, got to go play here. And then you go and you're like, oh my God. There's, I'm trying to think of more, but, even Mountain Shadows, the par 3 course in Arizona, that was another one of those, like, you got to go check this out. They just redid it. It's a par 3 course. Little things like that have been popping up constantly in my life. And I'd like to think, we're talking about storytelling, and storytelling is influencing. And we talk about influencers, right? Like, was I a storyteller, or was I an influencer, or was it a bit of a combination of both? I'd like to think, I was in on the dirt with StreamSong in the original days. Like, before they opened, I was going to StreamSong to see what was going on. StreamSong to me is one that, in theory, I was trying to help put on the map, basically say, hey guys, this is worth, making the trip for. I have found, I could, if I'd known, I would have probably prepared a better list, but it's endless in terms of, quote, hidden gems. Lawsonia links. I'm trying to go through per state here, but it's the buyer's market that we have right now in the game of golf is absurd. And I think it was good. It was fairly decent. We certainly had a lot to choose from 25 years ago, but the difference between 25 years ago with the renovations and restorations and redos, essentially mulligans on some of those designs that were happening in the late 90s and early 2000s, to where we are now with the additional stuff that's happening to some of the premier destinations, things like Sweetens Cove and some of these little, sort of targeted at a boutique, offering, is ridiculous. And I don't know how it all can be sustainable and all work because the amount of additions is crazy, but the there is an embarrassment of riches in terms of options and opportunities for people to play golf right now.
You could basically put an atlas of the world up on the wall, blindfold yourself, throw a dart, and wherever it lands, you could probably go there and just have a great time, no matter where you are. I would have to imagine.
It's very true, and then and then it also comes back to it's not about where you are, it's who you're with, right? Like as I've gotten older, that's very much true. Like you're taking 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or 5 days or 7 days, or if you're really lucky, you're taking 10 days to be with a certain group of people. There's no where I'm at in my life, I'm not spending it with people I don't want to be with, right?
Exactly. You did enough for that early.
We
all did enough early in the career.
We do it enough early in life and career, and then it's like, okay, as you get older, you might not be doing 36 a day. It's going to be more about like, I'm going to do 18 a day. I'm 18 a day, and then maybe a short course in the afternoon, or maybe we're going to go see, a hurling match, you know what I mean? Like we're going to take in a pub, we're going to do the perfect pint tour in Dublin, things that are be like, oh, wow, I went to Ireland and didn't just, play 36 a day and travel and drive.
Took in the whole experience.
We took in the experience. So, at some point in life, checking the boxes of courses, it falls down in the priority list to experiences, and golf is part of the experience, but you just want a little more, more to it. And I'm looking at the tee times I have at the Uncle Tony Invitational this year. We start first morning, it's 8:30 a.m. We play 18 and then the short course in the afternoon. The next day it's 10:30 in the morning. We play 18 and then we do a 9-hole alt shot in the afternoon. Then third day we start teeing off at 11 a.m. and then we do the punch bowl putting course in the afternoon. And the last day, first tee time is noon. And then we have a little room left over in case there's a playoff. And then we have the champions dinner and then we depart the next day. You see, like as the week gets on, we sleep in more, we can stay up later at night and do, have the time around the fire pits and, that we want and catch up with the guys we want to hang out with. So that used to never be the case. When we were in 30s, it's, off at 7:30 a.m. and again at 1:00 p.m. and it's 36 a day and it's, no holds barred. But isn't that funny how things evolve over time?
Oh, yeah. I've got a group, guys I grew up with and know my entire life, started during COVID because they were all up in Michigan and they were all in lockdown. So I just said, hey, I can put a deal together down here. We had, I think, 12 or 16 guys. And now we've done it this will be the 5th year. And same thing. They get here Thursday. We're playing Thursday afternoon. Friday, we're playing, I think we tee off at 9. We're playing 27 or 36, but then Saturday the tee time shifts to noon because everyone's like, I want to play 36 a day. I said, okay, sure. And everyone comes down and says, oh, we're going to go out, we're going to party. And everyone's 50 and older, 50 to 65. And, after everybody eats, after we get back, and we usually do a grill out one night, we're watching college footballs on and everyone starts sitting around the sofa and just shooting the breeze. We don't have the fire pit, but it's same idea. And it's like, who's going out? I'm not going out. I'm too comfortable. The only place you might drift to is the dining room table, and we're always, of course, playing cards and talking smack to each other like we do when we were 12 and 13. So, but yeah, similar thing. And like I said, everyone's 50 and older, and it's like visions of grandeur. You think you're going to go out till 2 a.m. partying, and no, by 12:30, 1:00, everyone's out cold. Never left the house.
It's and again, this goes back to each group is different. And I say all the time to my group, I'm like, hey, if you don't like this setup, if you don't like this trip, you can start your own. You know what I mean? Like this is you know what I mean? Like if people are rocking up and going, we should do this. Oh, we're not playing enough golf. We're not. Hey, no, all good. Just go ahead and start your own group. You start your own trip. You know what I mean? Like, but a benevolent dictatorship, I think, is always the best trip where
always,
you're taking in some opinions, thoughts, and advice. And I've got like a subcommittee, it's the Uncle Tony Invitational. And then I designate 4 uncles who are like they're my leadership committee. They're my they're my eyes and ears on what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I pick their brain and say, what do you guys think? These are kind of trusted advisors, like, and 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 so I am listening and I am tweaking. We're always making changes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on who we are, where we are in life, where we are with our, our priorities, and the overall sort of sense of what is a good experience in total.
Where does the passion come from for telling stories as you're doing now with your event, where it revolves around golf and courses, but it goes more to the people and the overall experience? Where does that come from to pull these things together, and the desire to do that and to do it for a career? You've done this for a long time. Yep.
I think, my uncle was a connector of people. He's a storyteller. I come from, my great grandfather worked in the original days of Hollywood, worked on Grapes of Wrath. He worked with Charlie Chaplin. He was like a stuntman
Wow.
on
Very
some of the
cool.
Charlie Chaplin movies early in the day. He was like, he was the prototypical of that era, man's man. His, hunter, fisherman, they went on, guys trips before there was something called a guy. You know what I mean? Like and my uncle, was a duck hunter and a deer hunter and dove hunter, and he'd get around, and you eat and you tell stories and you hash them out. And I've been around that whole world my whole life. And then he used to do a golf tournament when I was a kid, and before I could go, he used to do big golf tournaments up to Reno and Tahoe, and a bunch of guys and big, money pots and, gambling and all kinds of stuff. And then it got too much for him. And then I was like, as he was getting older in life, and he had brought me into the game, and he would tell me, how to, he taught me what the game was about and how the game could be used from a social standpoint and networking standpoint and business standpoint. And a lot of that was by also just being around him, watching him, listening to him, and learning from him. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I started the tournament while he was still alive, in honor of him getting me into the game, but also bringing back this concept of bringing people together. And in my group, I have everybody from my high school buddy, my college buddy, all the way to, people I might have met, a year ago, who I think, oh, this is a good fit for this group. So it comes from a wide range of people, and I like getting people. I like getting people together. I like connecting dots. I like introducing somebody, and then the best thing is to find out that, oh, these guys who met on this trip are now getting together and they're playing golf somewhere else. And we have a text thread that's essentially 13 years long of the core group of guys who are constantly, hey, we're here, we're at Goat Hill Park. Four of us are here. Here's five of us are together over here. We're doing you know what I mean? That to me is where it really starts feeling like it's the good stuff. You're
Yeah.
connecting people who stay connected and then reconnect, aside from, because the best buddies trips are not just the 5 days or the 3 days or the 7 days that you're on them. It's the ones that feel like they're 365 days, and you just happen to be get together for five of those days.
Yeah, it sounds like, it's like a very organic way to do it. It wasn't the purpose to do it, but it's one of the great benefits that come out of when you put something together like that. It's like you never planned on it. It's like, wow, this really has taken shape over, as you mentioned, 13 years of text threads. Like, wow, this is a great side effect of what I started. But look at the good stuff it's done, and just the relationships it's created and developed over time.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to at Golf Digest, when I became the travel writer. It was 2007. We introduced this concept called the ambush, in which we realized, oh, these people are taking buddy trips. We didn't really call them buddy trips at the time. We didn't really. It wasn't shared. It was pre-social media. It wasn't being something that was, people were taking buddy trips. Myrtle Beach, was one of the original sort of homes of guys getting in the car and saying, "Hey, let's go for 2 or 3 days." And then it became 4 days. And then, 4 guys became, 16 guys. And then it became, and I started documenting, people started sending me in these trips. I got thousands and thousands of emails when I was at Golf Digest saying, come tell a story about our trip. I documented 60 buddies trips over the course of 5 years, and going everywhere, any wide range of budgets, destinations, group sizes. I remember I did a story about a group of guys who went to Myrtle Beach, and they went twice a year for 50 years. And they had, they were
That's awesome.
memorializing people who had passed in the group. They had plates out where, it's like where those guys used to sit. I mean, and I saw such a wide range of how and why the game can be utilized to connect people who, we long for that hang, right? Just like we used to do when we were in high school,
Mm-hmm.
sitting around on the corner of a street and, chewing the fat and talking stories. And, what is that? Is that group therapy? Is that just good friends? What
I think it's just the human connection.
it's all of it. It's all of it. It's all of
Yeah.
it. And people are going through things in life, good and bad, with their kids and with their relationships. And, we are one big group. It becomes familial, right? It becomes like a family atmosphere if done right and with the right group of people. It can be an incredible source of support and connection and camaraderie. And that's why I always say, when it's done right, it's so much more about the camaraderie than it is the competition. Yeah, we want the competition. Yeah, there's going to be a winner and loser. Yeah, we're going to be having some side bets and envelopes are going to go out. And you hope to get your money back and then some, whatever. But it's really about the connective tissue.
As somebody who's been in the golf travel and media sector for more or less your entire career, and as things have changed and they evolve so quickly, and they seem to be changing and evolving faster and faster, and everything in life, technology is advancing things so much. Where do you see everything heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Even faster than I could possibly imagine. I mean, I have seen, I started at a news weekly back when the concept of a news weekly made sense, right? Remember when Sports Illustrated covers would come out on Wednesday or Thursday?
Couldn't wait for it every week.
And we'd read a 4,000 word article on a game that, we might or might not have seen on TV. And we had those nuanced insights and journalism and reporting about, what was said and the scene around it. And then, I went to Golf World and Golf Digest. Again, Golf World magazine would come out almost, some people would get that magazine 2 weeks after the tournament had finished, and they'd still, make time to read that article, the game story about what took place after the next week's tournament was over. And I used to think, oh man, is this going to make sense? So then you get the internet. I was at Sports Illustrated when we used to still shoot, all the photographers shot film, and I was a photo editor. That, I used to have to, we'd just have to run bags of film up to the development center and then wait for those slides to come down. And we'd have to look at each slide on a light table through a loop. And so I watched, and now, I watched as digital photography came online and then got better. Now, we're shooting everything on phones. We're shooting 4K video, on iPhones, and images on our iPhone that could hold up to magazine quality. I mean, so where is it all going? I mean, the streaming and immediacy and YouTube and get people like Bryson DeChambeau and what he's doing from his brand standpoint and storytelling. It's and now AI. I just really don't know. I would be crazy to sit here and act as though I know. I do believe that storytelling is undefeated, whether that's for a brand or for a destination or for, about a specific event, whether that's done in 30 seconds or 30 minutes, or, I still binge watch documentaries and docu-series stuff. I mean, that stuff still matters to me. I watch my kids, that my kids, I've got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, 14-year-old, and a 7-year-old. They are not sitting around watching a flat screen TV on the wall. They just don't do it. They are watching on their phones or their iPads, or they're gaming and simultaneously watching and streaming, with their friends. So I don't see them all of a sudden, taking to, live events like sports is pretty much the only reason why they would even, think of sitting on the couch and watching a TV. So where it all goes, I don't know, but I just know that we're coming into generations who do not watch linear, linear broadcasts.
No,
Does not
it's
happen.
amazing. My niece just turned 5 a couple months ago, and when she was as early as 2.5, I'm going to say, I could have that a little wrong. She would come over and my mom would be here and she'd be sitting on my mom's lap and she would grab my mom's phone from the end table and just start touching the screen. She didn't know. She just knew it when she did touch it, when it worked, and she would slide it. And I mean, their kids are learning at such an early age and accelerated rate with this technology. No surprise that your kids don't sit down and watch TV. Not the way that you and I would sit on a Saturday morning and watch cartoons for 2 hours while they're eating cereal before we ever
Totally.
made the decision to go outside and figure out what we were going to do the rest of the day. But part of that question came from, as you look around, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and follow a lot of media companies. One of them that has had tremendous success, and I'm a big fan of theirs, is Valuetainment, Patrick Bet David podcast. And obviously they're in a basic news area, so it's quite different than golf. But it doesn't. But you look at a podcast like Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom, or Tom Belew's Impact Theory, Diary of a CEO with what's his name? I think it's is it Steve Bennett in the UK? But these podcasts and these entities see these meteoric rises very quickly, and what I don't see it happening with either media companies, production companies, podcasts, is really in the golf sector, where it just seems to be some of them get a little bit of lift, but they don't go to that next level like you would think they were. And I'm just curious, as somebody who's been in media industry your whole life, if you had a theory on why that might be, or what's missing, or what's lacking, or if it's even possible.
I mean, the fact of the matter, you mentioned Real Housewives of Orange County, which my wife is on. They get 17 million views of those episodes. It literally is funny, right? Because you take final round of the Masters and you're going to get 9.5 million viewers. Final round of the Super Bowl of golf. If you look at the ratings of any typical PGA Tour event, or everybody talks about how there really is no ratings for, if we got 100,000 viewers of Morning Drive, that was a huge day.
Wow.
100, and that's counting 16,000 essentially pro shops who have it on as a backdrop. Do you know what I'm saying? Like when my wife said there's 17 million people who will consume this episode, not only live, but then around the country and around the world, and then different times that they're streaming it. If you add it all up, it's 17 million. That she's been on 10 episodes. She's posing for pictures in New York City, in Columbus, Ohio. We in Carmel at a pharmacy. Oh my God, are you Katie from Real Housewives of Orange County? She's been on 10 episodes.
You say, hey, I've been on Golf Channel for years, and they're not coming up to me saying.
Maybe at a golf course, maybe at an airport, might be, hey, maybe. I mean, and that's 7 years, 5 days a week on the reality is that golf is small. As it relates to all the other sports, all the other sort of, uh, I don't know, distribution outlets of content. Golf is small, and then within golf, you have a lot of people doing it, right? So it's the numbers don't, and again, I don't know where this is going as it relates to men's professional golf, because none of it pencils out. You can't take that viewership and you can't take that money that these guys are making and say this may. I don't know if it was Rory or if it was Xander or someone was like, I don't know if this this is not making sense. We don't get the eyeballs that college football gets, that Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NFL. We don't get those numbers. Why do we think we're justified in these dollars that are being paid out? It doesn't make any sense. So going back to sort of why there isn't this great, golf is a niche. It's a niche sport. And there's some people who play it who don't watch it. And there's some people who watch it who don't play it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Almost everybody who's watching football doesn't play football. They're they're fans, right? But if you're playing golf, you can't actually also watch golf. You know what I mean? And then there's this whole generation of people who might be playing it and they might be watching it, but they're not watching TV golf. They're watching YouTube golf.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's more people watching some of these guys on YouTube than they are watching guys who play at the elite level, at the professional level. There are more people watching the good guys and then might be watching certainly the live guys, and probably more than what you're seeing, some of the best players in the world play. So it's kind of, it's very splintered. So you're taking a niche group and then you're splintering it out. That's why I've lost virtually all interest in men's professional golf until they're able to actually get in a room, make sense of all this, get together and start having the best players in the world play X number of weeks. Right now, we just have the majors, where that's the closest thing that would interest me, and why I would take a chunk of my day and time to sit down and watch, a round of golf. As it relates to week in and week out, with some guys over here and some guys over there, and they're playing for this and not for that, and they're already made gajillions of dollars, and now it's like it doesn't even really matter to them. And what's another million versus the 30 they've already banked? I don't know. The playoffs, is that really was that interesting to anybody?
I was never a fan of the playoffs. When they came up with that, I wondered what are they doing? I mean, well, NASCAR has this and other sports have that. Yeah, but you're not NASCAR. You're not football. I just to copy it. Well, that kind of brings me to, obviously the President's Cup started today, and it's been so lopsided. I think the International is what they tied once in the 20 some years they've been doing this. And to me, I'm a big a golf fan as anybody. And although I'm in the category you are, where unless it's a major where all the top players are playing, I might have it in the background while I'm working on something for the show, but I'm not sitting down to take 2 hours out of my day to watch. And I'm not going to disrespect any tournament, but I'm not going to watch golf just to watch it. But I look at the President's Cup and I say, at some point, this has to become compelling, or it's just a money grab by the organizations that are putting it on. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. You obviously were up front and center, and I would imagine on a number of them.
Yeah.
Any input on that won't? I'm not trying to get you in trouble with anybody. Just
no. I don't care. What again, my wife's on Real Housewives of Orange County. I'm used to. I've definitely have a thick skin now. There's no offending me, and I'm not afraid to offend anybody at this point. It doesn't really, it is what it is. I'll never forget going back to Sports Illustrated days, and it was the 1995 Ryder Cup. And the editor-in-chief at the time, a guy by the name of Mark Mulvoy, I was in an office. I was one of the few people who even cared about golf at Sports Illustrated at that time. And there was a designated chunk of people who were golf writers and golf photographers, but it wasn't anything what it is now. And at that time, again, Sports Illustrated mattered, right? So, and I'll never forget, Mark Mulvoy was literally rooting for the Europeans to win in 1995 because he knew that was going to make the event more significant. And because he was like, oh, we need the Europeans to win to make this matter. And I was like, wait, what? We're here in the U.S. and we're rooting for the European. That was like a record scratch to me. But in fact, he was right, and they did, and choke kill and the whole thing, and it was like that was a big turning point for the Ryder Cup, in which it was like, okay, now it was a reason. If the Yankees always beat the Red Sox, would that be a rivalry? If UNC always beat Duke, would that be compelling? Like you've got to have the back and forth, or else it's just not. It's a fabricated rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
The President's Cup has always never. What does mattered mean? I love a lot of the guys who play for the internationals, but there's no real cohesive thing. It's starting to get that way. I mean, I think this year Canada, there's a lot of Canadians on the team. There've been a few close-ish calls where it starts to feel, and then the game getting more global and the growth of the game in general, and there's a lot of really good players on both sides of this aisle here, but until the internationals can win, I just don't think the President's Cup is ever going to be something that is remotely close to the Ryder Cup. That's just the facts.
I think the Shield idea that they came up with a few years ago, it was a good idea to at least bring some sort of cohesive. I think that's one of their biggest challenges. How do you bring all of these players from all over the world together to fight under a banner that doesn't mean as much to say all the guys who grew up in the U.S. Can rally behind the U.S. flag, or even Europe. They're all from different countries, but they're all in this. It's somewhat of a close knit because the culture there was a lot different. But when you're pulling from all over the world, it's got to be very, very difficult. I think that's part of it. But for the other question I wanted to ask you about it is, why do you think that the U.S. seems to gel so well and play so well at the President's Cup, and they gel well at the Ryder Cup, but they seem to struggle, or it seems to be a bigger challenge or hurdle for them to get past? Is it just the history of it? And it is more back and forth. They know that when it's in the back of your mind that you've won 20 years in a row, even though it's every other year we're playing the President's Cup, it's like you expect to win. When you go to the Ryder Cup, it can, it's been so heavily competed over the decades. Obviously, Europe's beaten our ass the last 10 years or so. But when you know that you're going to have a dogfight on your hands, I think that's the mental part of it in the back of your mind is a little different.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think pressure, and I think the Europeans have proven multiple times now that these formats are it's really hard to beat them on their home turf. So there is a home turf in Europe. You know what I mean? There is a home field advantage for them. It's a format advantage. They've all grown up playing, this type of golf. And I think in the U.S., there's a lot of individualistic and sort of, me by myself kind of mentality. And so it's been harder for the U.S. team to gel in the best ball or the better ball format. So, I just think there's more depth in the European teams than there are on the international teams. I think the international teams have a few good players that can compete on an elite level. But there's guys, there's guys on the international team that if you walked up and polled 100 legitimate golf fans, they're not going to know them. They're not going to know their names and you're not going to know anything about them. And that's somewhat true about, in some of the cases of the European teams over the years, but those guys, you do know their teammates. They have, played with them over the years. The format is great. And then I think there is proof that they can win. And therefore, the pressure is on the U.S., way more. The pressure is on the U.S. to sort of beat this team. Whereas U.S. versus international, the international team hasn't proven it yet. They haven't proven that they can do it, and they certainly can't do it on a regular basis.
No, I'm waiting for them. I think it needs to happen soon. That they're going to have their, what year was it that the Europeans in the Ryder Cup, was it Muirfield? Was it like 83, I think, that they either won or almost beat the Americans in the Ryder Cup? I think one of the early years that Faldo and Seve and Longer and Sandy Lyle and that whole group that was really, really good. I think at Muirfield, here in the U.S. at Jack Sports Muirfield, that they either came close to winning or almost did win. And that kind of set them up for the next year where they actually, I think, did pull it off.
Yeah. I remember at Kiowa, I mean, obviously in 71, was it when I know there's been a couple moments within the Ryder Cup in which there was, those were there was like, you
can mark them on a calendar and say, this set it off in this direction. This really elevated this year. And it continued. It was every so often. And the President's Cup going to have something like that soon.
81, was it 81 at Kiowa? Let's see.
The Kiowa where Bernard missed on the last hole was 91, because I remember I was in school and we were watching it while it was snowing outside.
That was 91. 91 was a huge. That was a that really sort of started. That ended up ultimately getting back to 95. So 91, 95. You got these egos. And the fire, right? I mean, the fire started burning, and you can look to Seve as a big catalyst to, like, we're not afraid of you, we can take you down. Let's beat these guys, kind of a mentality. So, those were some good old days of that was when golf was essentially a contact sport. Now everybody's like, shot a good putt. Oh, we're kind of half rooting for you. And it's like, there's just a lighter tone to it. It has been, I mean, there's been little flare ups, and with Rory and some of the stuff, and that, God, that just makes it way more interesting. I wish it was more raw. I mean, who wouldn't want to see a LIV versus PGA Tour? I think the President's Cup is really sweet and nice and fun and whatever, but like, does anybody really care? LIV versus PGA Tour in terms of the ratings and interest would be, monumental, astronomical versus the President's Cup. It wouldn't even be close.
God, they might eclipse that 9 million viewership that the Masters get. That'd be up there.
That would be Real Housewives of golf. That would be that would actually get to those types of numbers. I think if
they should also. I tell you what, if I don't think it'll ever happen, but I think a lot of people, even the ones who aren't fans of one or the other, but I think everyone, if you got them in private, would admit that, I'd love to see that. But I think you would also have to do with like the documentary of it, like a full swing. But even if you had that live, not so much the team room, but at least going back to where they're hanging out or in the hotel or in the locker room or this or that, and just listen to how guys are talking, because maybe they wouldn't want it to be heard, because I'm sure that the emotions might get carried away. But you're right, it would go back to that late 80s, 85, 87, 89, 91, 93, 95, when the Ryder Cup was like, it was approaching rugby type stuff. And these guys wanted to bash each other's heads in. They were so competitive.
I love that era. I love those guys. And those are our guys, right? I mean, I grew up, I get to now. I just was at the Champions Tour last week. I love getting to see those guys. They're a lot less intense now. I mean, Woody Austin's still throwing his club. I mean, the guy is absolutely a lunatic. I mean, you're at an event, first tee, kids in the group, and Woody Austin's still losing his mind on the Champions Tour over, you're at Pebble Beach in September and he's still throwing clubs. I mean, I'm like, Jesus, dude. I mean, at some point, are you just chose not to evolve as a human being? I mean, it's bizarre, but
He's one of a kind.
They drink good wine, they tell good stories, they're just way more likable, approachable, more interesting. They're not robotic. They got a variety of swings. Their short game, their putting's not all that great. I think the lab putters are hot on the Champions Tour, but their chipping is always still pretty good.
I
And
think their putting's not great because they can't see the hole as well anymore.
yeah, when they get this shake, I mean, we all know it. We know it happens, but yeah, it was a great era of the game, and anything we can do to kind of spark the true rivalries or the true emotion is, I think, what the game continues to miss. I think Scottie Scheffler's an incredible talent. What an incredible season, but he'll be the first one to get up at a press conference and be like, "Yeah, this doesn't actually really matter to me. I got other things in life that matter." It's like, no, don't tell me that you've actually got proper priorities and perspective, because we want to see guys who we want to see the Tom Brady's who basically just can't think of anything else other than competition.
Man, now you have a you do other events as well, and we were talking before we came on. You got one coming up in December that people can kind of check out and see, attend, and up at Pasatiempo, which is a great beautiful place, great golf course.
Yeah,
can you tell us a little bit about that before we sign off today?
Well, just as a production company, I've found a business model around documenting restorations, renovations, or new builds, and that's sort of essentially what we call In the Dirt. And at Pasatiempo, we've been the last 2 years documenting the restoration of those Alistair McKenzie greens. Jim Urbina, Justin Mandan, the superintendent. Earth Sculptures is the the contracted group to help them do that work. They did the front 9 last year. They're doing the back 9 this year. They'll reopen in December, all 18 holes. So the front 9 is open now and can be played twice. The back 9 was open last year and could be played twice. In December, you're going to get access to all 18 holes. December 19th, if you go to bonfire2man.com, 2, the number 2, and not spelled out 2. So bonfire2man.com, you can sign up. And for $650, you get a round of golf, you get a lunch, a dinner afterwards, and we're going to have Jim Urbina there for a round table. So you get to play all 18. We'll have gift bags, and we got some sponsors. And we're going to carry that model into a lot of these projects we have going forward. So if we're working on telling the story of a golf course and the restoration, renovation, or new build, we'll host an event there on the back end and bring the architect in and do a live recording of a Fire Pit podcast and have people be able to answer, ask and get questions answered. And so, that's it's kind of a fun way of not just doing content on the front end, but then also creating some content on the back end of letting people actually get to see the work that's been done.
And I'll have the link to the Bonfire site, but is that where people will go watch the documentary as well? Or are you going to have it, is it going to be anywhere else?
So that's at thefirepitproductions.com. So thefirepitproductions.com is the website, and that, all content is on there. And then, the podcast I'll do is wherever you listen to podcasts, it's the Fire Pit podcast. And then, Pasatiempo will have it on their website too. So they'll, any and all content that we're doing is going to go on their site as well.
Been a long time. God, it's been 20 years since I was there. I had breakfast there on the old back porch. Was it the 9th or 18th hole, the par 5 that came straight up the hill?
That's 9.
9. So yeah, I remember looking down there, and we didn't get to play at that trip, but it was a beautiful place. And I found out it was a McKenzie course, who's my favorite designer. And then I was really irritated that I didn't get to play. I wanted to change the whole trip around so we could play there, and it didn't happen.
Well, come on out in December. It's going to be and then, we'll get some golf in on the front or back end as well. But it is Pasatiempo, for whatever reason, it's oddly underrated as it relates to rankings. And I'm not exactly sure as to how or why. I do think that maybe this green restoration will help start it, getting on a path to where I think in my mind, Pasatiempo, as far as an inland golf course, it's got, to me, it's top 25 public course in the country without question. And and it could be, I'm not sitting with a ranking here in front of me, but it's in the conversation with the Pebbles and Spyglasses and Pinehurst #2. And you're talking about Alistair McKenzie. You're talking about he lived there. You're talking about some of the greatest greens in golf that are now actually getting restored back to multiple pin placement. You're talking about some of the great par fours in golf. The collection of par threes are ridiculous, and you'd put them up against any other golf course in the country. And that Pasatiempo, you said, every now and then you've stumbled upon some. At the time when I first found Pasatiempo in the mid 2000s, there weren't a lot of people going in and out of that area. They were going to Monterey Peninsula. They were going to San Francisco. They weren't going over to Santa Cruz to play Pasatiempo. I think the green fee when I first found it was something like in the hundreds, 100 something. And now it's $495. It's going to reopen as $495 because I think people, and they host the Western Intercollegiate and they've had some great tournaments. This is as good of a golf course as you'll find, not only in America, but in the world.
Do you think it's because it was never that really long of a golf course, or it didn't have that championship length to it that was updated to most other courses?
But it plays long. Like it's not, you're not going out there because of the undulation and the heavy air. And you got the third hole, 230-yard par 3 dead uphill. It's not, I think it's, I don't know what it was. I know. And it also sort of went through some rough times as it relates to agronomy and water. And they were trying to figure some stuff out. I think that probably had an impact on some of the rankings and stuff. But in my mind, and after this restoration and what Justin and Jim Urbina have done at Earth Sculptures, this team and what they've done, and I give a lot of credit to the membership and the leadership there, because it took some real guts to go forward with this project, considering it was pretty damn good. But, if you really do a deep dive and understand the agronomy and what was happening under the ground and the sand splash and the runoff and all the top dressing and how it had evolved, it needed it. I think you'll see Pasatiempo continue to get the recognition and the respect it deserves.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, beautiful part of the country. I'll always have it as I do all the time in the summary, links to people can follow you everywhere. But just if somebody's driving or they're just hanging around, where can they follow you on social media or anywhere else?
I'm on Instagram a lot. Twitter's gotten so toxic. I do post there and I get a lot of my information there, but I'm just at Matt Ginella and Matt_Ginella on Instagram. Instagram to me is my platform of choice. I've dabbled in TikTok. My kids are constantly telling me, "Yeah, do more TikToks." If I have to choose one social platform as the one that I'm doing most of what I'm sharing, it's on Instagram. It's Matt_Ginella.
All right, and I'll have links to all the fire pit stuff and all your other stuff as well. It's a lot of them, but we'll put them all in there. Everyone can follow you. They can message you. They can do all that cool stuff, especially if they're having now that we touched on how to plan your own trip, depending on who's going and what you're looking for. You're obviously a world-class expert, and hopefully some people will reach out to you and say, "Listen to you. Can you direct us on here so we don't get in a huge family argument or huge buddy argument when we go to the right place?"
I do, like I said, I take it very seriously. I do try to make sure I'm really helping people make, critical decisions as it relates to how they're going to spend their time and money, because I know that's a premium now more than ever. And I can promise you, I don't think I've ever not responded to somebody and not tried to help. And for the most part, and I knock wood here, but I get a lot of very, positive responses back saying, "Thank you. I went. That was great. I played it. That was awesome. I wouldn't have done that. We do this now because you said that." And that means a lot to me. It means, that really is why I do it. It's why you try to help people. I'm sure it's probably like someone saying, "Hey, I listened to your podcast, Pete, and that was amazing. I really learned somewhere. I got some."
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't like to hear positive feedback? And I know you take it seriously, obviously, and people react to that for your thoughtful nature of preparation and questions and conversation. So that's what this is all about. It's been an incredible run. And I've seen what I've seen and know what I know and think what I think, and I'm always happy to share. That's sort of that's at the base of going back to like connecting people and getting people together and
Mm-hmm.
having good experiences. And so it's what the game's all about. It's the way I was raised, and we're all in it. I always say this too. We're all in it together. It's a beautiful part of the game.
Yeah, I'll definitely be reaching out. I've turned 52 in a week, and I got to get over to the UK, Ireland, Scotland, wherever to play. And got some buddies that now want to go, so I'll definitely be reaching out to pick your brain going forward.
I'm always happy to help, and that's a good one. That's a good place to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. You're going to enjoy it. We appreciate it. Check you out next time.
Thanks, bud.